All right. Awesome. Welcome. Happy Saturday, everybody. Well, or whatever day it happens to be when you end up watching this, because of course, we're doing this as we're live when we have this discussion, but then everybody who watches it afterwards, obviously it's not live. But anyway, if you do want to join us live, let me tell you what we're doing here. First of all, today we're going to be talking about different ways to make your life easier. And the reason we're talking about that is because we're discussing verse 37 of the Tao Te Ching as interpreted by Wayne Dyer in his book, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao. And so anyway, we get together every week on Saturday mornings, and you can find us at SaturdayMorningMastermind.com, and that will always take you to either the page, so you could just jump right into the discussion, or it'll take you to the replay page where you can watch the replay and add your thoughts on the blog post and that sort of thing. So. But before we get going, I just want to give everybody an opportunity to kind of jump in here and introduce themselves. I imagine they're going to have a few more people jumping on as we get going this morning. I think everybody's just kind of running slow today or this week or whatever. So anyway, hey, Chris and Catherine, jump out and just say a word or two or three. Whatever you feel like saying.
Good morning. It's Catherine Clement in Boulder, Colorado, and it's a beautiful sunny day, but I know it was in the 40s last night because when I woke up it was in the 50s in here, and I was like, ooh, I should have put another blanket on. I could see where I was like this all night. So winter is coming upon us quickly. We're going to have these crisp fall days, which actually I really love, so it's a good day. Thanks for joining us.
We can't hear you. You're muted. There we go. Now we can hear you.
There we go. I'm still trying to get my phone straight. How about that? Hi, I'm Chris Camp. How you doing, everyone? Good to see you, girls. Glad to be here. It's about 70 degrees here. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words, but anyway, hello. Hi, and glad to be here.
Now you're muted.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. I was on another page and I was reading the chat there. I want to make sure everybody knew where to go. Christina said she was going to try and join us this week. And then I thought, hey, I wonder if she remembers how to do that. And then I got over there and you had posted all the information. So thank you, Catherine. Welcome, Karen. How are you this morning? She's probably still trying to connect. Whenever you're ready, Karen, jump out and say hey. We just kind of got started and started introducing ourselves.
Hey. I guess that's spelled H-E-Y as opposed to H-A-Y. For those of us who live along the Rocky Mountains, that would be key to know. I'm excited to be here, and I'm so glad you can't see me eat breakfast since I've been up since before 5, and I'm finally getting some. Oh, I'm just really always excited about this. I think this is another one that's a little obscure for me, at least the parts that I read. Thanks.
Right on. I think that is the calling card of the Tao Te Ching is, obscurity, right? It tries to be obscure. It tries to, well, I don't know. I mean, I know he wanted to give us some important messages, but I think he kind of puts them in wording so that the interpretation is open to your own personal experiences, and what you get from it is based so much on your own life and what you see from other people too, and that sort of thing. So I think it's really interesting. I love talking about these verses with each other because we get these insights that we would otherwise not get. I mean, I remember, well, there's been many of them where we get on here and one person says one thing and one person says something completely different. We're both going, dang, you're right. You know, welcome, Christina. How are you this morning?
Hey, I'm good. I'll have to do this from my phone since my computer's down.
Oh, right on. No problem. Yeah, I just saw you post something on the chat. Can you do a video from your phone? Does it let you? Or did you just call in? Are you trying to figure it out? Okay. We'll jump in whenever. If you get the video going, that'll be great. If not, not the end of the world. We're just happy to have you on here and sharing your voice and sharing your thoughts and all of that. And that goes for everybody, by the way. Okay, so let's get this chat going. Let's read the verse to start out with, and then we can all kind of share what we thought, and then we can kind of go from there. Who wants to read it? Me? Who are you pointing at, Catherine? Chris? Okay. I know it's different on my screen than it is on your screen because I have my window smaller, so that everybody's kind of lined up. Yeah, Chris has a nice reading voice. You read it, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
Tao Te Ching, verse 37. The Tao does nothing, yet leaves nothing undone. If powerful men could center themselves in it, the whole world would be transformed by itself in its natural rhythms. When life is simple, pretenses fall away. Our essential natures shine through. By not wanting, there is calm, and the world will straighten itself. When there is silence, one finds the anchor of the universe within oneself.
The anchor of the universe. I thought that was such a grounding statement, if you will. I guess you could say it's so grounding. It's centering and comforting. And that was kind of my thought when it said anchor. You know, it's like your anchor in creation, so that no matter what happens, it's all okay. That was what that kind of anchoring. I don't know. But what's everybody think about this verse overall? What came to mind when you first read it?
It reminded me somewhat of last week's verse, and that I remember that it was something about, you know, doing nothing or being nothing. It's this it's the same kind of reference towards simplicity, and it just so happened that, like, I had a whole bunch of complex ideas going on, so I was like, I'm finding myself have to slow down to even digest it.
Yeah, when I read it, this is a really busy time in the business that I'm in, and like things are going crazy, and it's kind of, you know, we have like deadlines and stuff, and we're all pushing. And so reading this, I had to remember that when I get when my mind is getting frustrated or worried about deadlines or things like that, and I get that bit of anxiety, or I like to call it excitement instead of anxiety, but, you know, that bit of inside, you know, I do have to just stop and center and calm and quiet, and just, even if it's just for like 2 minutes or even 1 minute, I just have to do that and remember that everything is, even though my mind is thinking, oh, we need this in place and this in place, everything is going to unfold exactly as it's meant to unfold regardless. I mean, you can't just never pick up the phone, or, you know, never invite someone to your business or anything and expect to have a huge team or whatnot. I mean, there are like some actions you have to take, but I think he's referring more to the our inner peace, not necessarily what's going on around us, or how that's revealing itself. What do you think?
Yeah, for me, I think it was more of that new sort of mantra that I've put in my life, where the crazier things get, just get still so that I can hear or receive, what solutions may be around me, and not be so chaotic. That's kind of what I was thinking of when I read it.
How about you, Karen? What did you think when you read it?
She may have a mouth phone. She's eating breakfast.
That's cool. Unmute whenever you're ready, Karen. When I first read it, I was reminded about the simple part. It says, when life is simple, pretenses fall away. Our nature shines through. And with me, I thought, this week has been, well, actually the past few weeks has been crazy, right? And, and so I was sitting here thinking, why is it so crazy? What is it that I'm doing to make my life so crazy? And, I realized that I'm the one that's making things difficult. I'm the one that makes things frustrating. I'm the one that, does all these things to myself. And, this week in particular, I was, just really, frustrated in relation to my husband, and it was just silly stuff. I just kept saying these things over and over in my head that I, was not happy about, or I was frustrated with, or, I disagreed with, or, whatever. And it was all this conversation in my own head. I couldn't even talk to him. It was just all me. I'm making my life frustrating. And I remembered last year when we were talking about the book What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter. And I remembered a simple technique that I used when I did exactly the same thing. When I found out my daughter was pregnant, and then she was talking about moving to South Carolina to be with his family. And I'm like freaking out, and the whole world's coming to an end, and I'm making myself miserable and frustrated and upset and everything else all over, oh my God, these people, I don't even know them, and they're going to raise my grandbaby, and I'm like freaking out. And I kept having all this crap going through my head, and it just was making me more and more and more and more upset. But since we were reading that book that was talking about what you say to yourself in your head, and that I realized that, I could change those things that I was saying to myself. And once I did, it was this super simple little fix. All I did was just change some things. It's like I'd start to get upset, and then I would change those words around to something positive. And by doing that one simple little thing, I changed my attitude completely over the whole thing. It was so simple. And it was crazy how, we make our lives so frustrating, so difficult, so we're upset about the dangest things. And yet, if we would just change one little simple thing, we could change how we feel, we could change how we experience life, we could change so many things. And when I remembered that, I was like, oh, so I got out my notepad, and, I started writing down some positive things that I could be saying to myself instead about, my husband and my situation and my life and all the things that are going on. And instantly I was, had some transforming feelings. And I'm like, we do this to ourselves. We make our lives frustrating. We make our lives difficult because of what we say, in our own head. And it doesn't have to be that way. And that's what this verse reminded me of when it says, when life is simple, everything just kind of falls into place. And, we're the ones making it difficult, right? What do you guys think?
I love
Okay.
that you recognize that. Come on out, Karen. Come on.
Oh, sorry. I talk about making things difficult. I do that on the computer all the time. Like I had just lost the picture. Was trying to read the words. I thought I had myself set up, and I didn't. But I think the comment that I was trying to make is, you were remarking about how the anchor, the anchor of the universe is calming. And, there's really quite a bit about this that is. I think a lot of it's kind of like, uh, I mean, Samantha, you and I must have had the same mother somewhere way back. I know all that head stuff, but and one thing that I'm trying to do about that is I'm trying to become more conscious, and we're reading The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard on one of the calls that I listen to in the mornings, and I'm just such a fan of his that I've got all that stuff, all the words in my computer, but I don't have it in my head. And so I'm determined that now I'm going to start to get it in my head. I'm going to take the 30 minutes daily that Napoleon Hill recommends that we spend kind of retrashing through our mind, setting new things in there, getting what it really is, to be more conscious. And to be more conscious, I'm picking up on, is to be more centered from within. And not I mean, we talk about this all the time and we mention it all the time, and all of the authors that we've read, to not be concerned about the outside world and what other people are thinking, and the impositions of the calendar and the deadlines and the all that kind of stuff. And yet that's what we're programmed to. And sometimes I practically can see the little wheel that I'm the mouse treading on, because it's like, oh, why am I doing this? Well, because he said I can tell he thinks this of me because of what he said, because this is what he thinks he sees. And I'm just determined to become more able to center myself, to transform myself, to get into the natural rhythm of the Tao. This is helpful. Just spending the time, just taking the time out. I mean, I was thinking as you were talking, Catherine, how incompetent I am these days at being able to handle deadlines and a rush period, and stopping for an hour. And it's such a good thing to do that. So that's it.
Thanks, Karen. Christina, I want to thank you, first of all, for writing the blog post this week. And I know we didn't get it published yet, but it'll be published when we post this, so it'll all kind of mesh together. But I did read some of it this morning when I had a couple of moments, and you shared something in there about, what was it? Well, let me get it back over here to it. Your friend that was upset because of what was going on with her, and how she was frustrated with everything of her household responsibilities. And maybe you can share a little bit on that, may as well, because we're going to publish the blog post. It'll be along with this video anyway. But you want to share that little story?
Sure. Excuse me. I was having a sneezing attack.
Oh,
So I don't know why exactly, but this verse reminded me of a friend at work who was talking about basically that she was just overwhelmed and just mad at everything and just frustrated with her family because her husband and her kids. Like, she comes to work, she works her 40 hours a week, and every day she's rushing home to pick up the kids and get dinner ready and get them to their activities and get them fed and get them cleaned up and in the bed and clean up the house and do the laundry and da, 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 da. And she's just angry about everything. And I was like, well, baby girl, I'm just a little confused because you got a husband and your kids are old enough and very intelligent. And so therefore I'm not clear why you doing all this by yourself, because this is the whole team, the whole family, everybody got to contribute. Now, look, I was a latchkey kid, and my parents were not about all that. Like, I was doing dishes and making myself food at like 6, 7 years old, standing on chairs and stuff. So this is just beyond me, right? Like, why she's doing it all. And she was like, well, my husband does this when he does it, and when he does the laundry, he does it this way, and it just drives me crazy. And kids, they just don't clean the way I want it to be cleaned, and da da da. And I said, well, I just really want to make sure that you understand that your chaos and your frustration is your fault for your controlling nature. And it just reminded me, like, this verse, about living simple. Literally, she created all of that anxiety in her life because she had the need to come in and fix things the way she wanted it to be fixed, rather than let people be them and do them.
Oh, girl, that is so, that happens like so much. As a matter of fact, you guys, I bring up Byron Katie a lot. And that is one of the things, that was like one of the hugest realizations for her ever, after years of living in that chaos and that frustration, was she realized that for years, she had been upset because she asked her children and husband to pick up the socks and they wouldn't do it, and she finally realized that all she had to do was bend over and pick up the socks. and it solved the whole problem, which is sort of opposite of what you're talking about. But the point is that we, just like Samantha said, it's awesome that you realize that we are the ones that create all that, just like with me, I get busy and I'm thinking, oh gosh, I gotta get all those in. I gotta do this. And then somebody right about that time, invariably 5 people just at that time ask me a question, and then I'm like, because used to be only one person could contact you at a time, but now there's something called Facebook chat where like 5 people can call you all at the same time. It's like, oh, and then I just, like I said, I just have to, when I realize I'm at that point, it's so important for me to pull back, because I'll start answering people from a place of frustration and like, I don't have time to answer you right now. Even if I don't mean for it to take that tone, it will sometimes, so I really have to just recognize, okay, take time out, go to my happy place, know that all this is going to work out fine, and because you can, this is just yesterday, this is like a completely different subject, but this is where my brain just went like that. So yesterday I found this natural plant that helps people, many people with like really severe chronic pain and anxiety issues and like even post-traumatic stress and things like that. And the reason I found out about it is because a petition came in front of me where the DEA is trying to make this plant a Schedule 1 drug, so that it would be like if you got caught with this plant in your house, it would be like heroin and you could go to jail, for years and years over just this natural remedy that's helping so many people. And I was thinking, how wonderful it is to have something that helps. When you see something that helps anxiety, that's really wonderful, because I know a lot of people suffer with that. But at the same time, I also know that we create like 99.9% of our own anxiety. Like, anxiety is really a self thing. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, we do it by our own thoughts. So I'm glad that there's something that helps. And just like with pain, if I can keep myself completely my focus completely on something else. I mean, absolutely absorbed in something else. I don't notice the pain, right? So it's kind of like that with anxiety. You know, we work ourselves up. So I just wish that more people would do, you know, this kind of mindset work, and it's so important that we do it, I think, and that we tell people in a very laid back kind of way about it, you know. But because if you get rid of those thoughts about being anxious, the anxiety goes away, right? It's always, is it what they say? Anxiety is fear of the future, and depression is reliving the past or something like that. So it's being out of the moment. It's thinking about all the things that you have to get to, or that are about to happen, or that might happen. Does someone here,
That's
you know,
good.
suffer with anxiety and maybe could share a little bit of that? I don't consider that I'm pretty good at handling stuff from being a nurse for so long. So.
Yeah, I do. Did you mute yourself there, Catherine? Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. No, I have some anxiety issues, and I see how you know, being in a situation or with what's going on, it is have to do with the way we react, or how things turn out. Do have to turn they do relate to how we relate to things. But I also think the outer environment depend on how we're predisposed, or how whatever's going on. I think things can affect us. So, like, you know, it also seems, it doesn't necessarily seem easy, but yet it does seem simple, because he talks about silence being an anchor. So I'm like going back to that, and it's like, I guess it does seem like simplicity is the answer for complexity, but it's kind of funny because you get involved in so many thoughts or things going on, you know, you don't think to slow down.
I like that statement. Simplicity is the answer for complexity. Is that what you said? Simplicity is the answer for complexity. That's a perfect. I'm gonna write that down. Go ahead, Karen. I saw you on mute.
Well, I don't want to get too heavy or too deep here, so start waving your arms if you notice that I've lost that mission. Um, I'm bipolar. I've been diagnosed for it's 30 years, I think, next year or this year. And every time I think, well, you know, now I've gotten whole and I've self improved and I brightened up, and that can't possibly be the case. Well, I I go off my meds and I learn very differently. Um, so I do the depression bit quite a bit, or the other flip side of it. But I've also learned that I can experience anxiety attacks. And when I first had one, I had the high privilege of going into a doctor who was my parents' generation, and he was, I swear, he was one of the nastiest people on earth. Yeah, he fell far short of beating his wife, but he practically destroyed her. Just, you know how people can do. And so, you know, I'm thinking, of course, that I've just had a heart attack at age whatever, 22 or something like that. Describe to him exactly what I'm convinced a heart attack is, and he just completely mocked me. And then he told me how, you know, he actually gave me good advice, but it's really hard for me to spit that out, considering that, you know, that I felt and feel about him the way that I do. I'm sure he's dead by now. But what I've learned when I have an anxiety attack, or what I don't know that you could call it learned, but it seems like what I've discovered is that I can't begin to figure out what my thoughts were. You know, how I could have had the thoughts that would have taken me to the state. I mean, I've been driving after a set of episodes so bad that my son had to come and yank me out of one state, pull me back in. I drove taxi for a while after I improved because I just had to be out in the blue sky. And you know, when you try and do that in Phoenix, it's like, let's see, how do I accomplish being in the blue sky with air conditioning? And so I came up with the great idea of being a taxi driver. And I liked that. I liked it a whole lot. But I did find myself in the midst of an anxiety attack on the 10 I-10 freeway, driving a couple of older folks in my back seat. I mean, that was really, really, really frightening. And, you know, the only thing that it could have possibly been, I had taken them to the VA hospital in Phoenix, and they lived on the outer skirts. And so we had probably 50 miles to go or something. And I had been with them all day because you possibly have read or heard about the Phoenix VA, you know, a few years back. It was like the one that said, beep, beep, there's something wrong with this whole system. And so I suppose that I had just been kind of anxious, you know, really normal things, you know, a whole day with, you know, older folks in a VA hospital, which isn't a delight. And, you know, knowing I've got a lot of driving to do, having 6 lanes of heavy traffic beside me, no way to get even moved over. And so I think, you know, I think that there's, you know, I'd really like to see, maybe I just haven't found the right literature, or I haven't studied the right literature about how deep some of these thoughts are that cause certain things, anxious moments. I mean, that was more than an anxious moment, but anyway, so I'm sure you got a lot of light out of that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Karen, because that, I think that helps kind of give us a little bit of insight into those situations, because, you know, my aunt-in-law is a behavioral therapist, and she works with folks that are trying to gain life skills so that they can cope when they have disorders, mental or physical disorders. But she works in a I guess it's not a home necessarily. It's like they come there for a period of time. They learn these life skills and how to cope with life, and then they leave. Kind of like a I don't know what that's called, but anyway. So she has a lot of folks that you know, have disorders in their minds that cause them to, you know, lash out, cause them to be angry, cause them to be incapable of coping, cause them to have anxiety, all of these different things. And a lot of times they, you know, they're on medications of some sort to control these things. And I had this conversation with her one time because I'm like, I recognize these issues in myself. I'm like, if I start becoming anxious, I know what to do, right? You know, if I just, and I was like, I'm sitting here thinking, oh, well, you know, they don't need to be on drugs. They just need to learn these coping skills, right? And she was like, no, it doesn't necessarily work that way, because sometimes or a lot of times, there is something in their own minds that actually is blocking them from recognizing anything, or there's something that it's not connecting in the brain in some way, or, I mean, there's all these different things. And so something that may seem very simple to me from a personal development standpoint, it may not be simple to somebody else. And I think this is important to recognize, because a lot of times we kind of get it in our own heads that we know all the answers because we've read these books and we just think it's easy. and obviously it's not. And, and Karen, we were talking about the anxiety coming up and something triggering that, and you not necessarily knowing what it is. That's a huge thing. And, and there's been a number of times in my life where, particularly before I started on this journey of personal development, where I would just, all of a sudden, I would be so depressed and I would not know why I was there, because I didn't realize all of the things that came before that led me to that point. And it, it's taken a long time, and I still have moments where I'll just be mad for no apparent reason, and it'll feel like it's come out of nowhere. And but yet at the same time, now, because I've done a lot of work on myself, is that I can recognize what I did 3 weeks ago that started to lead me into all these different little things that added and added and added and added up, and now I'm here where I am. And it seems sudden, but it wasn't. But if I had no idea, if I had never done any work, if I hadn't spent all of this time, I wouldn't recognize any of that. And, but then again, and then if there was something even more wrong in my head, or not wrong is the wrong word, you know what I'm saying? But if there was a disconnect in some way in there where it just was, like I talk a lot of times about, with a lot of my emotional well-being is, I think it's hormonal. It's like a chemical thing in our brains or in our bodies, where there's something that triggers one thing that causes something else, and then it makes you so that you're incapable of seeing reason or seeing anything, and you just go. I don't know. Is any of that helpful to anybody? I just kind of felt like I was rambling on, and anyway. Christina, were you trying to jump out earlier? I thought I saw you on mute for a second when Catherine was kind of breaking up a little bit.
No, I wasn't trying to jump out.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think you bring up some good points there, Samantha, because I'm very guilty of that, what you were just talking about. Like, just because I have coping skills for something, or just because I think of a solution for something, and I'm like, well, why didn't they think of that? Or, why can't they just read this book? Or, I constantly have to reel myself in from that and have more compassion for people. And I got my eyes opened really big when my son was here visiting, because he has also been diagnosed with bipolar, and he was having tremendous anxiety when he was here, to the point where he was just literally vomiting. And it really opened my eyes to how anxiety can affect someone. And like you said, sometimes there's just a disconnect where they can't get themselves out of that. It's a chemical response. And if you think about, they say it doesn't matter what can be going on around us. If in our mind we're picturing being chased by a lion or something, it sets off chemical responses in our body. Our body doesn't realize that we're not really being chased by a lion. Our body thinks that we are. And sometimes we understand that we have a subconscious. So sometimes, even though we aren't consciously thinking of a lion chasing us, maybe our subconscious mind has made that connection, and so our body is responding to that chemical flood of adrenaline or whatever's going on. And those hormonal or chemical shifts can definitely affect how we react to people or to situations. And it's a tricky thing being human sometimes, guys. I know that sometimes it's getting better now, but for a while there, because gosh, how long have we been apart now? A long time. But for several years, I want to say 4 or 5 years after I left my last ex, who was abusive, every time I would hear a Harley motorcycle, my heart rate would jump to about 225. And it wasn't like I heard the Harley and I thought, oh, he's coming to get me. It wasn't that at all. I didn't have any thoughts. There was no time for thoughts. I heard the Harley, my heart beat like I was in a crouched position almost. Like one time I was in the Walmart. I think I shared this with you. And for some reason I'm walking through the Walmart and all of a sudden they come over the loudspeaker. Now I was in a completely different state where I thought this person was, but I heard over the loudspeaker, so and so, please come to the front desk. And it was his name. I don't think it was him, but it was his name. And I immediately literally went into a crouched position on the ground and like looking around. And so I do understand how the subconscious and how our body can react even before thoughts become, we're aware of the thoughts or that they even have time to happen. So I definitely, thankfully that doesn't happen anymore, but when it did, I couldn't control it. So I do understand that and try to have more compassion for people.
And I'm reminded also of, this week I was on, I have Kodi TV. I don't know if you guys know what Kodi TV is, but basically it's just, it's a software program on your computer where you can browse all these channels on the internet and get any kind of thing under the sun on TV for free. And you just watch it, and it streams live or streams however. But anyway, so I was browsing this one channel that had all these, it was like classic TV shows. And I was going through there, and there was like Gunsmoke and Laughing and, I don't know, half a dozen other ones that were from like really early times in my life that I remember watching. And I had, I wish I remember specifically which show it was, but I was just sitting there browsing through those shows, and I had this sudden realization that one of those shows shaped a fair amount of my thinking when I was a kid. And that carried forward into my life. And maybe it was Little House on the Prairie. Maybe that was one of them, because we watched that all the time when I was a kid. And it was, I imagine a lot of folks around, my age probably watched that a lot when you were young. It was a really popular show. But it reminded me of how much of my beliefs, attitudes, my moralistic values, all of those things were shaped by that particular show. And I can see how you could forget that. I wouldn't have even known, really, if I hadn't studied any of those kinds of things. I wouldn't even realize where some of my attitudes, morals, and thoughts and prejudices and things like that came from if I didn't get reminded of that, And so I think that we can have the same thing happen with us with emotions and with feelings and with like what Catherine was talking about and what Karen was saying. I mean, you can have these things going on inside your psyche and not even realize where they came from. And, but that was just a little reminder to me that one day when I was kind of looking at those old shows and going, dang, okay. Because there was another one like In Living Color. I don't know if you guys watched that. It was the silliest show, but I remember watching that one, and it kind of was like teaching you how to think of the stupidest stuff as funny that otherwise you would not ever think was funny. Like that fireman guy who's like all burned up and I don't know if you remember that guy, but anyway, it was. I don't know. I'm going to stop talking now. Karen, I saw you trying to jump out. Share what you were thinking.
Sorry, I had my mic up at my temple again. I was laughing because I'd never heard of that show or seen it, but I can picture what you were saying. And what that brought to my mind I always, I just love the characters on Criminal Minds, especially that young kid that was a model, and he's always so doofusy. Um, but I learned long ago, thanks to Abraham, that I couldn't even let past that show, because there are scenes, or just little tiny pieces of scenes that come into my mind every so now and then. Even last night, while I was just writing my own thoughts and putting together a post, I thought it was all innocent, and here I am seeing myself, strapped to this thing with my head nearly lopped off. And I mean, they have such incredibly horrific ideas, and this part of the Power of Awareness that I'm reading with Neville Goddard, he talks about how there's just one consciousness. There's just one I am. It's just, if you forget that you're not the robber, the thief, the whatever, you don't know who you are, you don't know where you are, you still know that you are. And that our environment is totally because of these things that we react to from our mind, from ourselves, and we we create them in our environment. And he calls it arrangements. And and it makes me think about those stones that you find. I'm just astounded at how long time, I don't know why I should be, that people have been stacking stones. I mean, I'm talking through the ages of the earth. But I think about that. I think if I walk along a riverbed full of stones and I see a stack of stones, it causes me to pause, and it causes me. I think it's Bruce Lipton that I got the idea from, that if you are going merrily along and you start to think, okay, so I'm walking along and I see this pile of stones and I start to think, and I think about my grandmother and how much she loved to fish and how I played along the riverbank while she fished, and I think about, were there Native Americans here where I'm standing, and who did this, and did she have long black hair, and did she have on a leather dress with fringe that she made from the deer that she threw a stone at? I do think that whether or not, and I'm still, I guess, not convinced whether or not I believe in reincarnation in the way that I used to think that meant. Whether or not that was the case, I do believe that we have these awarenesses from our progenitors. And maybe my great grandmother happened to be hiding, like you were, Catherine, in the Walmart, except that it was, on the other side of the river, as a little white girl, thinking that, those Indians over there, they're gonna kidnap me, and then they're gonna raise me like I'm an Indian, and I won't know who I am. So I think with all these arrangements in our mind, it's you asked Samantha if anybody got anything out of what you said, and I just felt such support because I happen to be one of those really judgmental people. I've just learned how to do this, and I've now practiced it enough that it's kind of effective for me. And so you too could get off your meds, and you could do this, and you could do that. And it's just really supportive when we can take the time to realize, hey, we all have different piles of stones. Thanks.
Thanks, Catherine. Christina, I saw you unmute. Jump out there. I know you were trying to say something.
I was just thinking that for me, this chapter was really more simple than it seems like. It feels like, I don't know. Like, in the blog post, I mentioned that story about playing basketball and how I basically I've had a lifetime of doing just everything that everybody wanted me to do and carrying everyone else's burden, and just doing the push through. And as we're coming up on the close of the hour, I'll just go ahead and get out. My point was basically, from this chapter, the importance of connecting with your inner passion. It's so much easier for your environment and for you to live when you are not carrying other people's burdens, whatever they say that you need to ascribe to, whatever level of success or whatever accomplishments or anything like that. If you kindly just live in that space of doing the best that you can in this moment, and really learn to ground yourself in that passion, it seems so much easier in life. I think as I've learned to do that more over the year, it's been even easier for me to to meddle in other people's affairs less, because I'm quick to have a thought process about something that maybe something else might work better. Do you mind me, giving my 2 cents? And now it's so much easier for me to just look at something and be like, ooh, if she just, that is not my business. That is not my ministry. I am not being bothered with that right now. So I think as I've learned to be in my simplicity and my stillness, and look, this is still a growing phase for me. It's so much easier for me to allow other people to do the same. And the interesting thing is that I've noticed that the people that I spend the most time around, as I'm doing that more, like, our strengths and our personalities, and our relationships even get stronger. So that was just all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Christina. And I think that kind of brings us back around to what that story that you told about your friend who was getting all upset because she wasn't getting any help from her family, yet it was her being so controlling about how things were getting done that she wasn't allowing anybody else to do it because they weren't doing it to her satisfaction, right? And so I think that's a great realization, that to be able to just, and it goes back to the last week's verse too, where it was talking about living in obscurity, and just kind of allowing everyone else to be and do and act and whatever level of personal growth they're in or not or whatever, and not worry so much about what they're doing or not doing, and just just focus on yourself instead of what everybody else is doing, and just kind of stand back and let them do whatever they're going to do. And that makes everything easier, right? Because if you're sitting there trying to control every aspect of everyone as well as trying to figure yourself out, then you just make your life more difficult than it has to be.
And check it out, Samantha. Not only that, but like I know I'm like, oh God, I'm so exhausted. Everybody I see and talk to is like, oh, I'm so exhausted. I'm so exhausted. Imagine how much extra energy you're spending every day being all up in everybody else's business and judging everybody else, and even taking on more shit in your life than is yours to be taking on. Like, literally.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're almost at the top of the hour, guys. Everybody share your final thoughts, and then we can wrap it up for today. On how to make your life easier. Last tip for how to make your life easier. We'll go with that.
All right. This verse was perfect because it seems like a contradiction. That simplicity is somehow this answer because you have these complex situations, but it just comes at the perfect time, and silence is really awesome. I thought the commentary that Christina just gave were some really great thoughts. I'm going to go back to silence here because it's a great anchor. So, and I appreciate being with all of you. It's great coming on these Saturday morning classes. Thank you guys very much.
Well, my tip is stop comparing, because what I find, and a perfect example of this is day before yesterday, I went to the grocery store and I was about not even halfway through getting what I needed, and I got into just knee buckling pain, and my mind, for a moment, my mind immediately was like, just like, ah! You know, like, I don't want to be in this pain, and why do I have to be in this pain? I can't even buy my damn groceries, and blah, blah. You know, my mind just like went there, and then my calm mind came in and was like, Catherine, why do you feel like you should not be in pain? You know, why do you feel like this should be effortless for you to do this? You know, and I really started thinking about how most frustration and suffering, I guess is the word I want to use, comes from thinking that things should be other than what they are, you know. So I'm not saying don't ever do anything to change a situation, but we do have to recognize that this is what is in the moment, and the more that we try to tell ourselves that it shouldn't be, the more we will suffer. So that's my tip. Don't compare. See you next week.
Anybody else have a final thought before we go? Karen or Christina? I know you kind of shared your last thoughts a second ago, Christina, but anything else you can jump out? Or Karen?
I think I'd just like to mention again how wonderful it is to have this Saturday Morning Mastermind. I think that the rest of the world is unaware that this is here for them, not only just to listen to, but they can participate in it. You know, being involved in the various things that I've been involved in where I can't participate, I guess, you know, I can comment, but who knows if anybody even bothers to read those comments. I just love this. I'm really happy about it. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Samantha.
Any final thoughts, Christina? Final thoughts?
Yeah, final thoughts. I like what Catherine said, and I would really like to see if everybody, each of us, could be a little bit more conscious about how compassionate we are or are not being. Because it seems to me too that, especially like in this very intense political world that we're living in right now, that the lack of compassion only seems to compound all the other stuff, and the simplicity, the beauty of all of our strengths are just not able to come out because we just don't have the compassion. That's all.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate what everybody has to add to this discussion. And thanks again, Karen, for reminding us about how much you appreciate this mastermind. And I appreciate it so much too. And yeah, absolutely. I think that more people need to realize what we have going on here. And I think part of that, it falls on me. I've got to get more syndicating going on. So people realize it. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. So anyway, so those of you who are watching this as a replay on YouTube or on our blog, you know, you can always join us at zoom.saturdaymorningmastermind.com. And you'll find the link below in the description or in the blog post where you can participate with us every week. We meet together Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. And you can jump on here and add your thoughts to the discussion. You can be on video, you can call in, or you can you know, not have your video showing. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. I just want to let you know that we are all here for you. And, you know, it's just all we have for you is love and friendship and non-judgment and all that. We all share what we think. And that's what this is all about, is just bringing our minds together and sharing our thoughts and insights on the things that we're studying so that we can all learn and grow together. So with that, guys, have a great, awesome, and amazing weekend. And we will see you again next week on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.